Angus, just describe to us this room, because we shouldn't be shocked that the standard is so good here, but this is a pretty amazing place.
Oh, it's great, and it's just a sign of what can be achieved when the proper resources are put in. For years and years, as you know, we operated in a 25-year-old facility that just wasn't fit for purpose. And it's like night and day, the difference between this and what we're operating in.
This room is unoccupied at the moment, but who would be treated here?
This is a bone marrow transplant room, and children in here would typically stay in for at least 4 weeks and possibly up to 3 or 4 months.
Just in this room alone, not leaving?
In the single room, with because it's got special filtered air and it's a highly sterile environment.
And tell us what the conditions would have been like in the old one. You probably would still have had the sterile air, but the general atmosphere in the room would have been very different.
Yeah, the old unit was just as clean, but it looked awful. It was small, it was cramped, there was no ensuite facility as we have here, so the children had to pee into a bottle or a commode.
So in other words, the child would have been in a room for 4 to 6 weeks with no toilet?
No toilet, no hand basin, and would have had to have bed baths, including teenagers would have had to have washed themselves out of a basin.
All of which they were undergoing treatment for bone marrow?
Yeah, at a very difficult time.
So what does it mean? I mean, you're someone who treats these children, and you would have seen the old treatment. You would have seen the treatment of the old conditions and the treatment of the new conditions. What's the difference like for the actual children?
Well, the treatment is exactly the same. The children will do just as well here as they did in the old one, but it's the dignity and it's the journey and how manageable that journey is for the family is like night and day now. At least it makes it so much easier for you here that they have the dignity to be able to go out into a different room to pee.
And I know medically it probably doesn't, but does it help recovery time?
Well, I think it probably does. Good positive attitude will always help. It's very hard to quantify that, but there's no doubt that in this type of environment, healing is enough.
Angus, when you speak to someone like Anna who's using the service here, it becomes so obvious how important it is to have the right facilities.
Exactly. No, she said it in a lot less words than we could have. And you could see in her emotion and how happy she was, if you can be happy to be somewhere like this.
And just again, his young child, 10 years old, undergoing chemo, you need to keep their spirits up.
Oh, absolutely. We have to do everything we can to make the journey as easy for them and not make it any more difficult than it is to have to come in and get chemotherapy. Even to hear her talk about the chemotherapy isn't great. She knows how long the cycles are, 5 days chemo, and that she'll be in with the...
And she knows she's going to be safe.
Fever. Yeah. Fantastic. It's like night and day on either side of the partition. As you can see here, compared to what we had on the far side, it's a modern, bright, open, spaced, modern hospital setting, which is fantastic.
Tell us exactly what is in this unit, because last time we were here, I'm speaking to parents and they were sharing rooms with their kids who were undergoing various different treatments for cancer, and it was almost Victorian in the way that they were being treated.
Yeah. Well, here now we have a modern state-of-the-art hospital facility. All of the beds are single bed occupancy. Everyone has an ensuite, which is essential for children with weak immune systems.
Just remind us again of what the situation was in those older rooms where they were packed in two per room. Was there a toilet?
There wasn't. On the old ward, we had most of the beds had 2 children in each room, with a single TV and no ensuite facilities at all. We had 3 toilets on the opposite side of the hallway for 19 beds.
And that just made people's lives miserable, didn't it?
It did. They were effectively slopping out, taking out stool and urine down the hallway to dump it into the toilet. And again, there was an infectious risk to the patients. It wasn't ideal medical practice, and the lack of dignity was awful.
Let's walk through the unit if we can.
By the way, we still look at this wall and still see the promised land on the far side, because this is only part 1, phase 1 of 2 phases. The original ward that we did look at is now currently under wraps and it's been totally renovated. So even though we're here in the nice facility, it's still too small, the new facility, and part 2 of the plan is that the old facility will be completely upgraded to give us the space that we need.
Let's walk through the unit, because there's lots to see again. And do you find yourself Is it annoying that we're almost in awe at something that is modern and bright?
Exactly, it shouldn't. All we have here is this modern hospital. It's the way it should be, it's the way it should always have been. And it is a bit sad that we're oohing and ahhing at how wonderful this is, when really all this is a state-of-the-art 21st century hospital.
How long was this in planning? How long have you wanted it?
Oh, about 5 years.
And there must have been times, Angus, when you wondered, with talk of the new children's hospital, with talk of maybe Crumlin being redeveloped, that you were afraid that this might happen.
Well, we could see that. We may have fallen into the trap. We've been told that there was a new hospital on the way and that we'd all be looked after them. But the new hospital was initially conceived or developed in 2006. We're already 7 years out from that, and we've made very little progress. So our approach here was to continue to develop this unit until such time as the new hospital is ready.
What does it mean for the outcomes of patients who are here now that are in these modern facilities? The thing was, the treatments were good, always were very good, but the surroundings were bad. Will it make any difference to the treatments that people will get here?
I don't think it'll make any difference to the survival data, because we were always good and we could always push the medicines that needed to be pushed and achieve the cure rates that we needed to. What this has got to do with is the dignity and the journey and how palatable or unpalatable the journey was in the old facility.
Once the new unit is done, they'll move out and then they'll have their own space to have their friends, and this will be much more like a teenage facility with couches and much more cool and laid back, and when they can have their friends in here and won't have to put up with their parents.
We're getting a few GDs left.
Yeah.
Pause at the end of every shot for 10 seconds because you have to end the shots after. We've just had a little walk around here. Anna, what do you think of this hospital?
It's amazing. The patients are getting looked after so well, and the nurses are just great. They're going to make me get better. And I love the new building. I've never been in the old St. John's ward, but I have to say it must be much better because this is amazing. There's lots of things to do, like there's playroom, there's teacher and everything.
I was just going to ask you, what do you do when you're here?
Well, I come down to the playroom here, and there's a girl called Healy, and she just does arts and stuff for us, and just hang out.
Yeah, and was it there are other kids here as well, so do you play with them?
Generally, yes, but not all the time. Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
It depends if they're feeling up to it, if I'm feeling up to it, so yeah.
Yeah, and tell me, how long are you going to be in hospital for this time?
Well, I'm going to be in until Saturday, so generally it's a 21 day cycle, and I get
For your chemo, is it?
5 days of chemo, and then I get home for 3 weeks, but I generally come in with a fever on the second week, and I have to get medicine and stuff to make the fever go down.
Yeah, and so you don't mind coming into hospital though when it's like this?
No, I don't mind at all.
And tell me now, you're wearing a Dubs jersey. How are the Dubs going to do this year?
Great, they're going to win
the
it.
men and the women.
Yeah.
Well, come here, you're very brave for Tom. Thank you so much, and look, as I said, best luck to you. We'll see you well soon, will we?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Lovely to meet you. Thank you so much. We stepped outside. This is incredibly space age looking, but all of this came about as a result of a lot of hard work. I just want to talk to you about what many people refer to now as the Donald Walsh effect. Donald was a young man from County Kerry who got cancer, but because they couldn't treat that cancer in Kerry, he came here. So St. John's Ward, the old St. John's Ward, was a pretty big part of his life.
Oh, exactly. I think Donald is well known to most people in the country now, and for good reason. Wherever he saw an area where people needed help, he was not afraid to speak out, and certainly we've benefited hugely here, not just in recent months but throughout his illness. He was a major friend of the hospital here and has been hugely helpful in the development of the unit here. It's
sad that stories have to be told to kind of put a human face on what goes on here, but Donald's really was that human face, and he was a young man who ultimately lost his battle against the cancer that was being treated, but what he did was I highlighted a number of issues: the suicide issue, the cancer issue, and this particular unit.
Yeah.
How much money is there any idea of how much money he might have been involved in raising it?
It's very hard to figure out, but I would imagine it's probably in 5 figures the effect and the direct effect that he's had, and that he's been able to help the hospital here with this unit.
For every donor watch, I suppose there are many others that will come through who we don't know the names
exactly,
of, and who have an equally brave fight going on.
Well, he's the face that's well known to the general public at the moment, but there are 140 other faces that come through these rooms every year, and so there are a huge number of human faces behind and would benefit from what Donald has set in trail.
Tell me what happens next, because here we are in this unit, we're still talking about the National Children's Hospital being rebuilt, and God knows it's terrible to talk about the demise of a lovely unit like this, but we ultimately want to see this unit closed sooner rather than later. What happens next?
Well, what happens next is that we've only done half of the development here. This is phase 1 that you can see now. Phase 2, as I mentioned, is the redevelopment of the old structure to bring it up to this level, and that then finally will give us a state-of-the-art facility that's large enough. It'll also finally allow us separate the teenagers from the babies.
Because they're all mixed in at the moment.
Exactly.
I don't want to get political about this, because you're a doctor and your job is to treat patients, but at the same time, here we are talking about National Children's Hospital. They said, it'll be done within the lifetime of the government, yet here you are campaigning and fundraising on behalf of this unit that should conceivably be closing just as National Children's Hospital. Is that frustrating as a doctor?
No, well, we don't get political here, we just look after the kids. So we've seen that what we need on the ground right now is to fix this hospital, and we set about doing that.